In February 2020, I quit my corporate law career at a white shoe US law firm. At the time that I quit, I was being paid £150,000, and had I stayed at my job, today I would be on around £250,000. Alhamdulillah, I don't regret this decision even one bit. And this is the story of how and why I quit. I'll explain the 3 actions that I took that completely changed my life trajectory. And I'll also share with you the 3 steps that I took to de-risk this move for me as well. Listen guys, before we start, I need a big favor from you. Many of you are watching this video and you're not subscribers, so please do subscribe to this channel. It really helps us a lot. We're doing this and there's an entire team of us behind this that make this happen. We will be eternally grateful to you if you did subscribe, and please do comment below once you've done it so that I'm off your back. Before I explain how and why I quit, let me give you some background. Corporate me had a lot of misconceptions. I guess that's what led me into corporate law in the first place. My first misconception was that I just respected the wrong things. Look, anyone that applies to a corporate law career has a little bit of that prestige, snobbiness about them, regardless of what they say to you. And I was no different. I'd look at the Magic Circle law firms, the Silver Circle law firms, the elite US law firms. You know, I'd see Suits on TV and I'd want a bit of that. And I was wrong, but I got lucky. You see, corporate law is about building experience, but at the biggest law firms, you are typically part of a cohort of 100+ people. You're just a digit. You can get lost in the sea of other trainees and free food and glitzy stuff, and before you know it, you finish your training contract and you haven't really learnt very much. Alhamdulillah, I got lucky because the intake that I was in was relatively small and I got to work on projects that quickly gave me a lot of responsibility. I also did a ton of pro bono work on the side, which quickly accelerated my growth and technical skills as a lawyer. And I kid you not, the difference between a trainee that has worked hard and gained all of the experience he can get versus someone that has coasted is about 1 to 2 years worth of career life experience. And ultimately, this experience gained helped me quit sooner, only I didn't realize it at the time. My second misconception was that famous lie that everyone in the professional services world tells themselves. I need to get to a certain point in my career before I can justify quitting. If you're a lawyer, that probably looks like senior associate or counsel or partner. If you're in consultancy or banking, that's probably something like an MD level. If you're an accountant, that probably is a senior associate or partner again. But this is a fallacy that I call the senior associate paradox. I've even drawn a little graph for it. You'll tell yourself you'll de-risk everything as you get more senior, so it'll become easier to quit. But the thing is, life is not linear, and the more senior you get, the more risk averse you get. You have a family, you have a mortgage now, and you have obligations towards that. You just become more entrenched in a lifestyle that you're comfortable with. You have that same route to work, you know your work colleagues, you're comfortable with them, they're your friends, you have those deep ties with your clients. It's very, very hard to walk away with that stuff once it's properly bedded into your lifestyle. Finally, you just become good at the game that you're playing. People respect and admire you, clients appreciate you, your partners love you. It becomes tough to leave that, but the thing that you don't realize is that this game that you're playing really well is a suboptimal game. It's not your game, it's someone else's. The final misconception that I had was that I could do stuff well on the side. And to be fair, I did do a lot of stuff on the side, and that perhaps was my saving grace. But to do something really well, properly, but something that is worth doing and that is worth doing well cannot be a side hustle. I repeat, something that is worth doing and worth doing well, where you will be remembered for it, where you become world class at it, cannot be a side hustle. If I look back at the time, me and Mohsin, we had these side hustles that kind of didn't really work because we hadn't properly committed to them. And I remember, we talked to people that had left the corporate career and we'd think, we can't do that, it's just too scary, isn't it? They just jumped off. And these people would tell us that, look, you're not going to regret quitting. But we just had that slight hesitation there that, can we actually do this? And then you're in this corporate life and, you've got all this prestige and comfort there and you've got a clear pathway and things seem to be working. It's very difficult for you to walk away from that. And I remember that, when I got my US law firm job, I ended up on a salary for the first time that was more than my parents had ever earned. And I was in my mid-20s when I got that. And so that was life-changing wealth, right, for me and my wider family. And so to walk away from that was difficult. I had come across someone who had quit their job, done something, it didn't work out, and then they had their tail between their legs and they came back to work, and you're now a couple of years behind in the career, and you have this kind of stigma of being a bit of a failure associated with you, and you fear that as well. You see that downside if things go wrong. Now, with all of that going through my head and the misconceptions that I outlined earlier, I credit me and Mohsin actually quitting to 3 actions that we took. First thing we did was in January 2019, we had a frank chat with ourselves and we said, look, we need to set a deadline where we're going to actually walk away from our corporate career. And we set it for 24 months' time, December 2020. And that was such a liberating and focusing step that we took. As a result of that, there was a lot more energy and drive and momentum behind what we were doing. Suddenly we were meeting people, we were doing things, we were trying to make things happen. We were now working towards a tangible endpoint. And as a result of all of that action, we ended up leaving way before the 24 months. We left around 9 to 12 months. So folks, the lesson is set yourself a deadline and share it with a friend and then stick to it. The second action that I did was I started meeting people regularly. As a lawyer, you have one perk, which is that you might work late, but you can start work late as well. So you have up to about 9:30 to yourselves. And every single day I would be trying to meet people. So over a year, let's say you've got 50 weeks and you're meeting on average 4 people every week. That adds up to a network of 200 quality people within a single year. And the thing that I was trying to do was I was trying to add value to these people, get advice from them, and get introductions from them to other people in their networks as well. So 200 people quickly became 600 people. And the other cool hack that I used was that I'd invite some of the high value people in the network onto the podcast so that I could spend real time with them, ask them questions, and have that deeper relationship with them. I had the founder of Muz, Shaz, previously known as Muzmatch. I had Hussein Kanji, one of the most prominent VC investors in Europe, the CEO of Algumi, the CEO of Crep Protect, the spray company that you can use to protect your trainers. I met one of the founding partners of Islamic Bank of Britain. It's crazy how many people you can end up meeting and develop relationships with using this kind of hack. The third action that me and Mohsin did was that we put Islamic Finance Guru on a commercial footing for the first time. We actually sold stuff. We sold courses. We sold Islamic wills. We started getting affiliate and brand partnerships with some of the other companies out there. If we hadn't started selling something, then we would only have been playing at being business people. We wouldn't really be business people. And the step of doing that teaches you so much, because now you're actually doing the single verb that really determines the success and failure of a business: sales. You're now doing sales. This was the moment that I realized that junior associate Ibrahim Khan with a few extracurriculars was actually good enough. He was actually going out and making sales, and we seemed to be heading in the right direction, and the proof for that was arriving in our bank account every single month. And I had gone out when we started this year hoping that we'd make a few £1,000s, and we were now making several thousands of pounds, close to £10,000 every single month. I remember the first time we got a 3,000, 5,000, 15,000 deal over the line. These were massive deals for us at the time, and we didn't realize that we could do it, but then we did. Looking back, there were 3 critical steps that I took that gave me that comfort and de-risked my quitting from my corporate career. First, we built the traction that we were getting to a tipping point. By September 2019, about 9 months in, we were operating at an annual revenue of around £90,000, and this is without any full-time staff, and we were definitely heading in an upward trajectory. That gave me a lot of comfort. It was clear to us now that there was enough money in the business to support us if we were happy to take a 75% haircut on our salary, which we were. What this monetary cushion meant was that we were jumping with a parachute on our back off a cliff, not just jumping into the abyss. The second thing that we did was we raised £250,000 from a small group of family and friends, which was the second big parachute that we had on our back if things really ran aground. But the thing is, by the time that we raised £3 million in our next funding round in August 2021, we had touched exactly £0 of that £250,000 that we had raised. So in retrospect, we hadn't actually needed that second parachute at all. But at the time, it was great having that as a backup, because if things didn't go to plan, and often they don't go to plan in a business, you have at least that runway of a couple of years to try and figure things out before you run out of cash. The final thing I did was I put down a deposit for my Islamic mortgage. This was actually a really vital step for multiple reasons. The first is that on a big salary, you can get yourself an Islamic mortgage relatively easily. But I didn't go for the most expensive house that I could have, and I certainly didn't go for a short-term mortgage. I extended it out as much as possible so that the monthly payments were as low as they possibly could be, because I knew that very shortly I would be on a very different type of salary. Finally, I knew that saving up for a mortgage deposit now with a higher salary would be much, much easier than afterwards, when I probably kiss goodbye to getting into a house in London for several years. So folks, so far I've shared with you how I quit, my playbook, but I also want to share with you why I quit. Honestly, I'm just someone who is entrepreneurial by my nature. Ever since I can remember, even as a kid, I had that hustle to buy and sell stuff. I was buying and selling cricket bats and balls and pens and setting up websites and trying to sell stuff on e-commerce websites as a kid. I just had that itch that I had to scratch at some point, and I couldn't forgive myself if I didn't. The second thing is I was incredibly passionate about Islamic finance and investing, and I was already writing. As you guys know, Islamic Finance Guru started 4 years before we quit. And I was already working on this stuff because this was my passion and my hobby, and I was doing it without any payment. So now that I get to do what I love as my day job and get paid for it, that's fantastic. I don't see this as work, even though I probably work harder now and more obsessively now with Islamic Finance Guru and Curate Capital. It doesn't feel like work, because it isn't. And finally, I know what I'm doing can inshallah have a significant impact on helping level up the Muslim community, 25% of the world's population, back to a level financial playing field. And I know that if we can help build a truly Islamic and viable financial system, then that can be a source of great inspiration and da'wah for the rest of the world. I sincerely believe that if we can execute right at IFG and hopefully inspire a generation of other Islamic finance and investment leaders, then we can have a real seat at the table and have material contributions that solve some of the most pressing problems that face our civilization today. So folks, that's the story of how and why I quit. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below of other parts of my journey that you'd like me to talk through. I'd also love to hear from people who completely disagree with me and you think actually quitting the corporate career is not right for most people and that I'm talking a load of cobblers. Please comment below and let us know the counter arguments. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.